It is now my honor to introduce Rabbi Aaron Spiegel. Aaron was a founding director of the Center for Congregations and architect of the Congregational Resource Guide. And as a trans-denominational rabbi, his focus is in helping congregations, nonprofits, and socially minded businesses implementing high-availability strategic plans. Aaron is also the president of the Synagogue Studies Institute, collecting and interpreting data about synagogues for the American congregational landscape. Aaron is an experienced leader and strategic planner in IT, nonprofit management, and digital marketing, as well as a consultant, a published author, and a seasoned public speaker. Along with David Hampton, Joanne Lyon, and Habib Alami, he is the co-chair of jima, the Greater Indianapolis MultiFaith Alliance. He also currently serves as the interim executive director of the JCRC. And in his spare time, just kidding, we are honored that he is here with us. Aaron, please come. Thank you.
This is the core of what jima is about, sacred friendships, and I'm going to go into a little more detail shortly. I also realize that I'm speaking to people outside of Indianapolis, either in the room or online. I make my apologies for that. It is the Greater Indianapolis MultiFaith Alliance. If we're lucky enough, maybe we'll go beyond Indianapolis someday, but right now we're busy enough with Indy. So the mission, these slides, by the way, are more for me than for you. Don't feel like you need to read it. I'm going to tell the history of how this project started, but what I really want to bring home is jima is, at least in my mind, very different than other interfaith initiatives. By the way, I hate the word interfaith. That's another long story. That's why one of the reasons we're called MultiFaith. And one of the big things, at least for me when I got involved, is interfaith projects tend to be the same players over and over again. It's liberal Protestants, Jews, and Muslims. And it was really important to us to include the black church and evangelicals. As a matter of fact, I wasn't interested in being involved if we couldn't include those communities. They're often overlooked, and it takes more work to get them to be part of the conversation. But it's an absolute necessary part of the conversation. And I think we're doing a good job of that. The core of jima is civil dialogue. I don't think anybody here would disagree that that's a big missing in the world today. And I may be a dreamer, but I believe that if we can foster civil dialogue amongst us, religious leaders, that will make its way to our congregations and to the greater world. It's a long-term investment, I realize, and we got to do it. Brian mentioned my other three co-chairs, Hiba Alami, who's the executive director of the Muslim Advocacy Network. Actually, she's not as of today. She's moved off, but she's still a co-chair of jima. Dr. David Hampton, who's the head of LISC in Indianapolis. Dr. Joanne Lyon, who's the former head of the Wesleyan Church in America, and then me. This list is our executive committee. It is certainly not everyone who's participating in jima, but what I wanted to show you is the diversity of the leaders of this organization. jima was launched in 2018, and it's actually an initiative out of the NYU Wagner School as a project about civil dialogue. Rabbi Steve Guto, this is his brainchild, and the first pilot city was San Antonio. Indianapolis was the second. I still don't know why he picked Indianapolis, but he did, lucky for us. Each community is separate and independent in its operations, yet we are united in our goal. Indy is the second. Currently, Dallas, Miami, Minneapolis, St. Paul are in the formation stages. So we hope to make this viral, spreading to most major cities in the United States. As I mentioned, interfaith, multi-faith is not unique in Indianapolis. There's certainly other great projects, but what makes this unique is, one, we're focused on civil dialogue. Two, we want it to be an all-inclusive conversation for all faith leaders and all faith communities. We became jima. Some people love that name, some people hate it, but you won't forget it. In 2020, it's taken a while for us to ramp up, thank you, COVID. But 2022, we're sort of hitting our stride. In addition to the sacred friendships, which we take seriously, it's not necessarily a group like this where I stand and present to you. For us, sacred friendships is we go out and have lunch together, or we have dinner together, or we have coffee together. They are one-on-one meetings between you and me. If we can't be in a relationship and know each other and trust each other, how are we going to talk about these really tough issues? We can't. If you don't trust me, why would you listen to me complain about fill in the blank? Add to that, though, all these communities have pick an issue, a social justice issue to work on. And this community came together 2018, 2019 as a group and picked housing, specifically the eviction crisis in Indianapolis. If you didn't know, Indianapolis is the worst city in the country for evictions. Not proportionally, not per capita, it is the worst city in the country for evictions. That's hard to still for me to wrap my mind around. And it's not getting better. And I think we have a way to do something about it. I want to tell you a quick story about our current focus and initiative, which is the tenant advocacy program. In January, I was part of a RCRLN meeting. Let's see if I can get this right. Race and Cultural Relations Leadership Network is a city project, actually been going on for 20 years, where all the diversity of Indianapolis comes together for a conversation. And Mayor Hogsett presented sort of the state of the city to this group in January and announced to us the state of Indiana had earmarked $90 million for evictions relief in Indianapolis. Yay, yay, go mayor. And being the provocateur that I am, I said, that's great. How are people finding out about it? To which he said, I don't know. Talk to Jeff Bennett, the deputy mayor. So, poor Jeff, I called him that day. How are people finding out about this? The people that need this money. And to his credit, he said, we're doing what we always do. We're going to the community neighborhood networks. We're putting people in libraries. We're putting people out there for those people to come to us. And I said, well, that doesn't really help people that need this money. Some of them will get there, and some of them won't. Why don't we put this information and these experts where people are already going, like in congregations, particularly those who have food pantries and clothing ministries and housing ministries and. And he said, wow, that's a great idea. We'd never done it that way before. And I said, well, let's make it happen. So we are. As a matter of fact, Second Presbyterian is the first pilot. So the idea initially was to create a group of pilot congregations and have them figure out best practices. Best practices aren't. But at least give us a format so that we could roll this out to other congregations. The core of this is indierentorg, if you don't know about IndieRent. That's the portal for someone to get evictions assistance, both for rent assistance and for legal aid. One of the statistics I heard, which is really appalling, is most people find out about IndieRent when they're in court being evicted. The judge always asks them, why didn't you file for assistance money? I had no idea. And they didn't. So we currently have 4 pilot churches and 2 different models. One is the city has created tenant navigators, people who are trained to take someone through the website. And rather than having them sit out there waiting for people to show up, we said, let's put them in the congregations that are doing the work when they're doing the work. This is the model that Second Presbyterian, I believe, is taken on. So one of the tenant navigators will be there when people show up, so at least if they don't have the documentation they need at that moment, they can come back next week and work through the site. The other way, and this is the one I actually prefer, is let's train volunteers to be navigators. It's not rocket science. It's really somebody who knows the language of the website, the bureaucracies, to walk through the city's website and understand the process. So the 3 other churches we're working with are doing that as well. Andy Beck, who coordinates this program for the city, I know is overwhelmed. And I'm not the most patient of people either. And this money is still sitting there waiting for people. So in a recent conversation with Immigrant Welcome Center, I discovered, if you don't know Immigrant Welcome Center, it's an amazing organization, and they're already doing evictions work. Their housing resource coordinator, Misty Cisneros, created a video on Facebook in Spanish to walk someone through the website. Now, I don't speak Spanish, almost at all. And I watched the video and I understand exactly what she was saying. So we approached Immigrant Welcome Center and said, would you create videos for us, English and Spanish? And they agreed, and they're working on it. So once we have these videos created, as far as I'm concerned, we're off to the races. So really any congregation in this greater Indianapolis area, so that's the donut, the 8 counties bordering Marion, is eligible, those folks are eligible for IndieRent. And we will make the video available and whatever assistance we can through the city, but I don't see any reason why you all can't be doing this work now. If you don't have folks directly impacted by evictions in your congregations, I guarantee you they know someone who is. And if we don't get this information out there, $90 million is a lot of money, and it's just going to sit there while Indianapolis keeps this evictions issue going on ad infinitum. And I don't know about you, but it's just not really acceptable to me. So if you're interested, please feel free to contact me, Spiegel at indierentorg. And oh yeah, by the way, we'd love to have you part of jima. It's not a membership organization. If you say we want to be part of it, you're part of it. We'll put you on the list. You'll get our newsletters. We don't do programming. We have no plans to do programming. We're about sacred friendships, about connecting people who wouldn't connect, and dealing with this evictions crisis. So, any questions? Ma'am.
Rabbi, what 4 churches are involved now? You consider 4 pilots?
Yes. And I think I can say who they are. They're in different stages of operation. New Era Church. I always want to call it Second Baptist, and it's Promise of Life Ministry and Tuxedo Park Baptist Church. So we have some diversity of location, but, 4 churches for the city of Indianapolis is not nearly enough. Not nearly enough. We need more, and people that are willing to take this on and make it work. And I'll stop preaching. Sir?
Yes, you mentioned that you work with African American churches and other churches, but you didn't mention Hispanic. However, you are trying to pass information to the Latino community, and what a better place than the Hispanic church. Is there any plan to connect with the Latino church?
Absolutely. And the primary the reason I contacted Immigrant Welcome Center in the first place was to get a list of Hispanic churches with whom they're already working. So yeah, it's in the works. We realize that there are always gaps in our cultural connections, and I can guarantee you that we're working on those gaps. If you know of a church in the city, don't let me leave without a contact name. Yeah, great. The more the merrier.
Aaron, thank you. And friends that are not in the Indianapolis area, I hope you also notice that there's funding available throughout the state of Indiana.
There is.
For this. So this is a replicable model. And so if you want to contact Aaron, please send him an email and use your imagination about how you might do something similar in your community. This is an Indiana crisis, and it's something that I think that our communities of faith can do something about. So Aaron, thank you for sharing, and thank you for coming today. Appreciate it.